Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Warren. Today I'm going to be giving you a presentation on stress management. Specifically today I want to focus on coping mechanisms and things you can just use on the cognitive side, so how you frame things, how you think about things, how you rationalize about events, and how you can just sort of safeguard your mind against the effects of stress and sort of work on getting out of your mind and just combating that stress in different ways. So I just want to start off looking at this picture here. Hopefully this isn't you, but if it is, that's okay. So we're doing this presentation today just to inform you about some ways to help you not pull your hair out. Alright. So yeah, like I was just talking about before, we're going to talk about those coping mechanisms, but also I just want to create an awareness around stress, because to first combat any kind of problem, whether it be, you know, a physiological problem, a problem with your knee or something, and in a certain performance of a sport, you really have to know the small detail. You have to know what's going on and how to sense that before you can even start countering the problem. So we're gonna talk about both awareness methods that you can use, sort of protect yourself against stress. Also, just to equip you with the methods to use this future with a client, or even like I said, yourself. All right. So what is stress? So stress is a physiological and psychological response. Basically, when the hypothalamus believes the body's being threatened, it sets off an alarm. And that can be from something as simple as, you know, an awkward social encounter, a presentation, or, you know, something as dangerous as maybe like an animal chasing after you in Alberta Provincial Park. Most people don't know that stressful events they can also be positive as well. I was reading the college undergraduate stress scale, and I found some interesting things that specifically like getting married is ranked slightly higher on a stress scale than the negative consequences of drug and alcohol use, which I thought to be very, very peculiar. But I did some further reading, and just like these positive events, they do require a certain amount of preparedness, and they just require the person to make a readjustment regardless of it's a happiness-filled event or a fearful-filled event. Specifically too, researchers found that in these positive events, though there was stress levels, and though it is, in this case, higher than the drug and alcohol use, they often said that happiness counteracts the physiological negative effects of stress, which I thought was really, really interesting. So don't be fearful about engaging in any happy events like going on a date, or, you know, going to a gym you don't know, or, you know, that sort of thing. You know what I'm getting at. Alright, so there's two different types of stressors we have. There's acute, which is sort of, you know, short bouts of stuff. Things like almost getting hit by a car, you know, things that motivate you into staying safe, that prime you to fight for your survival. Those like short-lived, on-the-go sort of stressors. Also, there are chronic stressors, which are things that are posed to you, you know, on a continuous and repeated level. Things like a nagging relative, or overwork, procrastination, a strained relationship, for example. There are a lot of chronic stressors that we don't even realize are in our daily lives too. And in this little fact I found, daily hassles actually have more of an impact on physiological and psychological health than major life events. So basically what that's saying is, you know, putting off cleaning your room, which I often do, putting off doing a sign, or putting off, you know, just small things like maybe not balancing your checkbook, or, you know, not really budgeting and making sure you know what's going on. Small things like that lie under the surface. It accumulates so much momentum and so much negative energy, and they cause such a physical demand on your body that they are more detrimental than something like a family member experiencing depression and that sort of thing. Alright, so stress, how does it work? So we have two different types of, we have cortisol and we have choleketamines. Well, choleketamines are norepinephrine, epinephrine, and both these, I guess all three of these, they prepare our body for an autonomic nervous response. So basically, strips all the secondary functionalities away, like digestion, peristalsis, that sort of thing, and just, you know, focuses on increasing the heart rate, that blood pressure, blood ventilation, all that great stuff. You know, it increases sensitivity through touch, through perception, with eyesight, through hearing, all those things, just so we can respond to a stressor. Also, it decreases pain sensitivity. And when this body is kind of in this turmoil, it helps maintain homeostasis. So just to discuss how it works exactly, just in passing. So when the hypothalamus detects a stressful event, it releases this hormone called corticotrophin releasing hormone, which stimulates the neighboring anterior pituitary gland, which then releases ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, which then stimulates the adrenal glands, releasing those both cortisol and cholecytamines. Alright, so just some interesting studies on Hans Selye in the 1930s, well, not on him, but about him. He actually just took a large group of rats and he exposed them to high amounts of stress, whether it be cold, whether it be painful stimulus, whether it be, overcrowding them. Very, very inhumane research for sure, and sort of very controversial today with our very strong ethics we have in psychology and psychological testing. But he found some interesting findings. He found some interesting things about stress, wherein when they were exposed to these repeated amounts of stress, they developed enlarged adrenal glands from the amount of work the adrenals had to do to produce cortisol and catecholamines, as well as shrinking of the lymph nodes, which is a major site in immune functionality, as well as ulceration in the stomach. So literally, the body was killing itself through stress. And this is something I want to just really, really touch on really quick and not sort of, meditate on or hang much on. But I think it's good to be aware of, the real physiological and psychological impact on stress, specifically the physiological aspect of it. So he coined this thing about when all these structures sort of change to the amount of cortisol in your body. He called this the general adaptation syndrome. So there's 3 steps to this. There's the alarm phase. Basically, it's just when your body's highly aroused, it detects the stress. The second part is resistance phase. Basically what that is the body is adapting to its high state of arousal, so it's paring those unnecessary functions away. And the third and the most important one I want to focus on here is the exhaustion phase. So he coined this as an actual phase in stress, repeated stress, where in the exhaustion phase, the body's resistance collapses. All those things that the body's stress defense, all the stress defense mechanisms, they cause gradual damage on organs, and they can cause things such as aging, tumor growth, irreversible organ damage, susceptibility to infection, or even death. And I found on my research, I found this word that kind of came up, and it was this Japanese word, and I didn't have any idea what it was. So I did some research, and because it was so correlated with the stress research I was doing, I just had to find out what this was. I searched it up, and karoshi actually means, like translated into English, it means stress by death. So, or rather, stress by overwork. So with that, people, there are a few instances in Japan before the advent of unions and that sort of thing, people being watched closely. There are a few people who were working for Toyota, and they averaged over 80 hours of overtime, and they just fell dead, just because although the stress response is paring down those secondary physiological things, they're key to us, like our digestion, that sort of thing. So these people literally died from overwork and starvation. Alright, so just really quick on stress in the immune system. Forgive my impulses. Stress in the immune system. So just really quick on a study they did a while back. So they made a wound in students' mouths, and they observed them whether they were on vacation or in exams. And the kids who were on vacation healed much faster than those on exams. Secondly, I didn't know this, but I was interested by this, but social status actually has an impact on people's health. So the way they perceive themselves, maybe it has something to do with third variables like engaging in there's higher rates of alcoholism, drug use, smoking, those sort of things. Overworked, underpaid, all those elements sort of factor into that, but they're more prone to suffer respiratory infections as a result of being lower class. And lastly, this is huge because we live in a very high stress society, and I don't know, we see a lot of people. I think the majority of men really deal with stress in a hostile manner. They lash out at someone, or they get angry when they get caught up in traffic, that sort of thing. And hostility is actually a better predictor of heart disease than smoking, high LDL intake, and high caloric intake. Yeah, that's remarkable, hey? Alright, so stress interpretation. So primary and secondary appraisal. So for primary appraisal, that's basically your mind identifies, or your hypothalamus identifies, is this a stress or is it not? And if it's not a stress, nothing else happens. There's no stress response. There's no perceived stressor. But if it's a secondary appraisal, then the mind asks itself, okay, do I have what it takes to be in control of the stressor, to overcome the stressor, and to get out of it alive? So the interesting thing with the secondary appraisal is that whether the mind thinks if it's a threat or a challenge. So a challenge is something like you kind of arrive on an even plane with. You think you can you can overcome it if you put the effort in. But a threat is something you kind of going into it. You're kind of going into it with a lack of, and they've shown that you actually perform differently when you perceive something as a threat versus a challenge. In today's day and age, there are so many different challenges. There's so many different stressors in our life that aren't actually stressors. Like why do we need that stress? Why is it there? And we really need to begin like stress analysis on ourselves. Like, do we need this? Cast it away. Say goodbye to it. It's not serving our physiology. It's certainly not serving our mind either. So like preparing for an interview versus lack of preparedness. You just think about this in situations. So if you don't prepare for this interview, you don't really know what the company's about. You're kind of speaking on eggshells. You're kind of looking to get out of there. You don't want to make too much eye contact. You think that the interviewer might see that you're not prepared, like through the way you look or something, and things just become mechanical, and you're not really yourself. Whereas if you prepare for an interview, you go on confident, you strike that strong handshake, you make the strong eye contact. You might even enjoy yourself, because you've prepared and you can just sort of rely on this preparation you've done. All right, so don't forget this guy. I'll explain this later, but don't forget this guy. All right, so coping strategies. Just a really quick intro about coping strategies, and this is sort of going to be the focus of the presentation. Coping strategies. Undoubtedly, one of the most important skills required for an individual to achieve well-being is the ability to cope. Effective coping strategies in conjunction with stress can be the difference between success and failure, or happiness and depression. There's so much stimulus in this world today and the way that we interpret that stimulus can make or break us. Remember that our brain can't discern between types of threats. It just knows it's being threatened, and that's a great point for really how we filter stress. All right, so we're just going to start with coping techniques around stress. So we have repression. What is repression? So repression means avoiding situations, suppressing thoughts, anything that reminds you of the stressor, and just remaining like artificially positive. Like, oh, okay, this is around this really stressful person at work. Okay, I'm gonna pretend I like them. Just kind of psych yourself up for things. But you're not really combating the problem. You're just sort of like bringing it in, and like instead of working on it inside yourself, you're totally containing it within yourself. And that has a physiological demand as well. They've done some studies where repressive coping can actually cause things like hypertension, cardiovascular disease, asthma, cancer, and all like remembering back just to what I talked about in the immune system and stress. Any stressor, whether it's contained inside yourself or going out to the world, it's going to affect your immune system. Secondly, and one of my most favorites, is rational coping. So I really like this because I really enjoy rational coping because, you really thresh out what it is that's affecting you, and you really just get honest with yourself, and you get relentless, and you just kind of stare into the eye of the storm of what's affecting you. So rational coping. This involves facing the stressor and working to overcome its intrusiveness. So 3 steps here: acceptance, exposure, and understanding. So, like I said before, you can't fix a problem unless you know what it is and you accept that problem. Exposure is finding the stressor, getting into that environment where it's caused, and getting more comfortable with its presence. And understanding, does this stressor even need to be there? Does it have a purpose? And maybe the purpose for what it had before isn't the same as what it is now, and it's not protecting you from any kind of mental intrusiveness or physical harm or anything. Just cast it away. Frankly, it doesn't need to be there. And I feel like a lot of people could minimize their stress by just simply undergoing the understanding part of the rational coping. So reframing, this is one of my favorite ways. Just because you can be super creative and you can think the most outrageous things. You guys have probably heard a lot of times when giving a presentation, imagine your audience is in your underwear. Ooh. Just kidding. But I'm going to use this presentation as an example as well. So previous thoughts around this stressor. You know, I'm presenting on a topic I don't have much experience on. I'm not an expert. You know, there's like going to be 30 people evaluating me and my teacher. This is their first impression of me. You know, I hate public speaking. You know, I hate presentations. And oh, if 15 minutes over yet? You know, those kind of thoughts about the presentation are really, really intrusive, not helpful, and just stress you the heck out. So a better way of thinking about it is just be yourself. Give the best presentation you can. Take yourself out of that expert box and put yourself into the student box, because you know, verbalizing new concepts and stuff is the best way to learn. And so just give yourself some credit for doing that and have fun. So just for stress inoculation training, this is a reframing technique that is used when reframing itself is too stressful to perform because the stress you have is unbearable. So, and when you use this, it's doing things such as, you know, writing in a journal about a certain stressful event. You know, Pennebaker did a few studies back in the late 80s where he actually observed a group of college students who wrote about their deepest feelings and thoughts, and he observed that they actually had a better physiological health than students who did not. And also, these students who wrote about their stressors and whatnot took less aspirin, achieved better grades, and actually went to the hospital less than their counterparts. Now, that's pretty incredible if you think about it. You know, something as simple as, you know, letting something out, but that just shows, you know, how intrusive stress really is when you don't allow it to leave from you. Alright, so these are just some other techniques. You know, everyone's different. Some people find things that make them tick. Like, personally, I ritualistically have dance parties in my shower. What can I say? You know, to each their own, right? But, you know, I'll throw some music on and I'll dance it up. I love going to yoga, you know, just leave my life and become a monk for an hour, 90 minutes, sweat it out. And I'm training for my first full-length marathon this year too, so if I can just, you know, tie up my kicks, put in the tunes, and just like contact the pavement, that's why I feel like I'm at my peak spiritually and also like physiologically. So go through this list, see if anything resonates with you, you know. But I just really what I want you to get out of this presentation is don't be ashamed of don't be ashamed of the stressors you have in your life. You know, just invite them out of the dark corners, take them out for coffee, embrace them. You know, love the chip on your shoulder as a result of having the stressor in your life. You know, everyone has them, and I feel like if we as a collective society practice this acceptance of our stress, we'll put much less of it onto each other and those who are coming down the line as well, generationally. So I hope you enjoy this presentation. I'll be appending another learning activity for you guys, just that undergraduate college stress level scale, just to see where you're at. And I just really caution you guys not to really get overwhelmed with certain, with the idea of the stressors or with the stress level or stress rating you have with that learning activity. Just use it as a place, just use it as a thing of awareness, get it done, get it out of the way, and then focus on how to minimize those stressors in your life. Thanks for watching, everyone.